Apple's Worldwide Developer Conference in 2026 was highlighted by the long-anticipated overhaul of Siri. That also gives us some really clear indications about the future of smartphones. The new Siri, it walks and talks in very similar ways to many of the AI apps that have had just incredible adoptions on smartphones. Currently, 1 in 3 iPhone users outside China use ChatGPT on their smartphone at least once a month. And this number remains at a very high 25% if you look at once per week. And many of the features that Siri now has brought more natively onto iPhones will look familiar to the many eager users of Gemini and ChatGPT. But Apple's real strength is really inside the refinement, because one of the big questions is how you make it more intuitive and more default to adopt a new feature. And this is where Apple's big strength of owning the full stack, so from the device to the software to many of the core apps, comes into play, just making the integration a few steps easier to do for the users. And that also leads us to a big question about the future of AI towards smartphones, or really what the industry likes to call the journey towards agentic. And when we talk about agentic, the real question is really how we can make it easier for users to do what they want to get done. The biggest disruption potential that now sits at the forefront is inside the user interface. So basically how we engage with the devices. Because what actually happens with the influence stack on smartphones, if we as users go from using the default app interface towards perhaps using more voice, using gestures, using prompts and commands to navigate around our devices, really putting the assistant at the center. And although there are many big technological developments that still need to happen, regulatory in many cases, in order to get closer to that reality, one of the big questions we're trying to answer at Omdia is about user readiness. Because what does it actually take for users to get towards what the industry is creating and what we're striving towards? When we look at use cases of AI on smartphones, there's over 1 billion users that regularly use AI apps, a lot of them ChatGPT or Gemini. So there's clearly use cases developing that people want. But the next question to now streamline is about interface engagement. Because as much as those billions of users have now interacted and are starting to get use cases leveraging AI on their devices, many of them have also experienced a worse voice assistant in the past where the expectation has to be reset. And that is the first step that Apple is evolving on now with the new version of Siri AI. Because we believe that the big questions all vendors need to ask is what default behavior is settled, what is settling, what is changing, and where is the potential to disrupt and gain, really. And follow along with us if you want to see how we try to answer those questions.